Welcome back to the Insider's Guide to Custom Homes. I'm your host, Rick Bell, and my goal is to educate you on the custom home building process and help you navigate your custom home journey with confidence. Today, we're continuing our series on the custom builder team, and we're spotlighting one of the most important roles in the entire process, the construction superintendent. Because even with great plans and a great design team, the home is only as good as the execution on the job site, day after day. My guest today is Sam Caprio, lead superintendent at Landmark Custom Homes. Sam has been in construction for over 40 years. He's done commercial work, has vast custom residential experience, ran his own company for years, and has worked with Landmark Custom Homes in 2 different chapters. Right now, Sam is running the largest home Landmark has ever built, a 54,000 square foot custom estate. Sam, welcome to the Insider's Guide to Custom Homes.
It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so let's just dive right in. How did you get started in construction, and what kept you in it for 40 plus years?
A combination of accident and destiny. My grandfathers were builders, occasional builders. My father was an occasional builder. There was building around me as I was growing up.
Where did you grow up?
In Miami. I was
Oh,
born
you're a
in
Miami boy.
Yeah,
Really? Wow, native. That's rare.
Yeah, at my age.
At your
yes,
age,
it is.
yes.
So I was interested in it. And in school, I actually studied architecture because I thought, hey, I'll go for the polished role. And I also studied engineering because I liked engineering. And so I carried on through high school and through the community college level. But after community college level, I couldn't really afford to stay in school. So I got out of the school and had to go to work. And the work that I found didn't have anything to do with construction. So I was knocking around doing that until I, hit about 30 years old. And then a family friend who knew my education, who knew me as well, and who was a crackerjack concrete foreman on high rises, had a client that wanted to build an office building, and he wanted to branch off on his own to do concrete forming. So he says, I got a client in my pocket. I know you have skills. I know you have administrative skills. I've seen you do your other things that you do, and let's team up. And so we did. So the very first thing I built was a 20,000 square foot office building.
Wow. So you went right into commercial work.
I did.
Not from banging nails, but actually
Correct.
From the administration side.
Correct. I had a buddy that I brought on board who was he was a superintendent for commercial construction, and so he schooled me. But actually, the nuts and bolts of running a business, I was better at than the foreman partner and him. So it became a combination of administration, and then from there I started doing all of our estimating. I could always read plans. Reading plans was something I could do from the time I was a kid. So I naturally knew what I was looking at.
Right, that comes from that engineering side of your brain.
Yeah, so I knew what I was looking at, and you opened up a set of plans and nobody had to explain it to me. All I had to do was read them and go, okay, yeah, I got it. So I knew what everything was supposed to look like when it was formed or done or created.
So in the commercial world, how long were you kind of doing that phase of your career?
It was like 7 or 8 years. Started around 1980. Okay, so, my 40 years is probably 45. You know what I'm saying?
I knew it was longer than 40.
Trying to keep myself young. And what went on was we really didn't get much more turnkey contracting work, but we did get a lot of low-rise office building and strip centers. If you recall, the 1980s were full of those. And we went around and we built strip malls and low-rise office buildings, and we were shell contractors. So what we would do is we basically worked for developers, and we would do everything that the developer couldn't do. We would give him a structure with steel roof, bar joists and metal roof, and then he would go get an electrician and a plumber and whatever and fill in the blanks. And as you may recall, in those days, strip malls were just the skin around the outside. There was nothing on the inside until they rented out interior completion.
Sure, it was just an empty shell.
Yeah, so I was building buildings all the time, just not doing too much for interior completion.
So how did that commercial experience kind of help you when you transitioned into
Well,
residential construction?
some necessity was involved. In 19, a couple of things happened. In commercial building, that type of commercial building, you have only really basically a handful of subcontractors. You have maybe 15 subcontractors that will give you a building. So you got to know what they were doing, and even if you weren't directing them, you saw them, accomplish their work. So I knew exactly how things went together. But what happened is in 1987, there was a savings and loan collapse.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I remember
And
that.
all of that strip mall and low-rise office building work dried up. At the same time, unfortunately, my foreman partner got cancer, and
Sorry to hear that.
he was not around after a year. So I needed to think fast. I had, in the process of that 7 years, gotten a general contractor's license and was fully licensed. And I said, I'll go build, see if I can find a client and build some custom homes.
And just like that, you're a home builder.
Just like that. Actually, it started with, how things work, with a family member.
Mm-hmm.
Who said, Sam, can you build my house? And I said, sure, of course I can.
Sure, never done it before. Well, how hard can it be?
And then I went out and picked a lot of home builders' brains. And then I said I could do this. And then I found out what it's really like. It is much different than commercial.
It's totally different than commercial.
It's totally different. You have different, in fact, so much so that the subcontractors are specialized. You have different subcontractors that you're dealing with. And instead of like those 15 scopes of work, let's say the construction homes custom homes were pretty simple back in the early days, let's call it late 80s.
Sure.
So that not too many design teams, but there was an architect that was involved, and then the owner would do most of the selections and things like that. So there was plenty more parts, but they were manageable, not like the parts that we have to deal with today. Where in a house that I'm building right now, I would think I maybe have 120 subcontractors.
So what's the biggest change you've seen over the years in residential?
The biggest change is the level of detail, and how the level of detail has really become sophisticated, and the modern conveniences of smart homes and everything that a smart home brings that was not even in play in the late 1980s. If you had a light switch that had a dimmer on it, you were doing something.
Yeah, I think our first smart home, we had a guy who was kind of an electronic genius. He worked for Sunbeam, and they were always developing all these little products, electronic products. And this was when we were building in Weston, and he said, "Hey, I want a smart home." I'm like, what's that?
Exactly.
And I want something when I come in and I open the door, the lights go on and the fountain happens. And I'm like, yeah, any idea how we're going to do this? Oh, sure. This is new technology. And we did our best to piece it together, but it's a world of difference today than it was.
There was adaptation that had to take place. Is that, I was an interior completion and lumber guy until you started building homes that had 18-foot ceilings. And then you realized you could never keep a 2x4 straight for 18 feet. So you needed to switch to metal, and the carpenters disappeared and drywall guys with screw guns appeared. So it was constantly evolving.
Yeah, I think the first house I ever saw steel columns and a beam was when I was building in Woodmont, and there was another builder doing it. And I went in there, and the guy's Kenny Posick. I said, "Geez, Kenny, wow, this is a really complicated house." I mean, it was 2 columns and 1 I-beam. But
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that was wow. It wasn't just wood trusses.
I'm also talking about all the metal framing that we do. Nowadays, we wouldn't think of, I have in the home that I'm building at the moment, I have 30-foot walls that are 30-foot sheer walls.
And you're not going to get those straight with a 2x4.
No, you're not ever going to do that. And you don't want to even try to consider that. So there's been evolutions in that sense of each particular line. We're just talking about framing and drywall. It's the same with, right on down to up to appliances. Appliances are totally different and much more sophisticated than they ever were.
And they have so many different types of appliances today. I mean, dishwashers that are load from the top down. You've got coffee makers built into the walls, and you have to figure all this out, how to put it together. And each one's a little bit different. It's never the same.
And every house is that way. So you're not You're always learning. You're always, there's always something new to figure out.
So in simple terms, what is the job of a construction superintendent? Maybe you can kind of explain your role in more detail.
The book would tell you that, to understand the plans and understanding the plans and making sure that the work is executed. But I like this metaphor that is, if you imagine that you're going to listen to a symphony orchestra, and that there's all of these, there's 100 instruments, of different instruments. There's a guy that's the conductor, and he knows the music, and he knows the music exactly, and he knows what it's supposed to sound like. And he, as the conductor, brings everyone in just right on time, and with just enough volume and just enough intensity to make some beautiful music. And that's basically what the project superintendent is I'm playing the role of a conductor, and I'm getting the electrician and the plumber and the drywall guy and the stucco guy, and I'm getting all of these people to perform
From the same page.
on the same page in time together.
That's a great analogy.
Thank you. And so to make beautiful music instead of just making noise.
Right. And the complexity of these homes, it's not always so simple. I mean, you have to have some really skilled musicians, if you will.
Correct. And that's why and there are a lot of different instruments that they're playing in it. And you need to know, as a conductor would, something about each and every one of those. Not everything about each and every one of those, but you need to know what's grounded in everyone's scope.
And that comes from years of experience of working with them and understanding the ins and outs of I'm not an electrician and I can't wire a house, but I can tell you when a box is crooked. I can tell you when something doesn't look right, when the wires don't line up.
Correct.
I mean, it's, when we started, I remember, it was spaghetti everywhere.
Exactly.
Now everything's lined up nicely in chaseways. And
if you saw just the wiring, or you have seen the wiring in the house that I'm doing right now, it's just like, it's like the inside of a submarine. It's, this is not kidding. This stuff has got to go right.
Oh yeah, and the miles and miles of wires. We built this on this picture on the wall behind you. This house was 37,000 square feet, and I think we calculated it had something like 75 miles of wire.
Oh yeah,
it's crazy.
When you look at the reels and reels of wire that come to the house, you understand that. Yeah. So that's what I think the superintendent's job is to get everyone working in harmony.
Right, and they have to do a quality job and make sure that it's done right, and hopefully the first time.
That's knowing the music and knowing what it's supposed to sound like and look like. So you need to ensure that that they produce that work.
So where are high-end homes won or lost when it comes to quality?
Well, the first thing is that you need to instill in your people a desire to perform. And meaning your people are your subcontractors, your performers, in a desire to perform. And that starts by letting them know that you care. I care. It matters.
Right. You're visible. You're out there. You're not sitting in an office all day.
Yeah. So I care, which means I care that the house is clean, that your work is clean, that you don't step on other people's stuff. So I care. So if I care and I respect you, then you have to respect me and the guy next door. And I had always one simple rule is don't put something good on top of something bad, because once things start going wrong, you can never correct them.
Right. You have to keep on winding it. It's a nightmare.
So if you come to do work, the houses are big enough. If you come to do work, and I believe everyone really wants to do good work. One of the reasons why people don't perform so well is they get to a job site, there is no superintendent to talk to, and they're gonna put their tile down on a floor, and the floor is out of whack, so it's already bad. So instead of making someone aware of it,
right, taking the time to mitigate the problem.
They just proceed, and now they're double out of whack.
So now you get a floor that goes up and down.
The first thing I instill in them is that, you know what, this is how you go dead wrong. If you tell me that you did something because it was like that, then I'm going to tell you, then you have to remove whatever you did.
Right. So how do you, when something comes off the track like that, how do you kind of correct course without blowing up the schedule? And now you got this bathroom to redo and this bathroom to redo.
The thing is that, again, dropping back to the size of the homes that we do and the sophisticated home is there's always a place where in order that you don't send a guy home and stop and lose time and effort, there's always a place where things are good and he can go to. You go to that good place. I will get the guy who did the mess up and we'll correct it. And then you'll come back here and you'll put in good stuff.
So just change the sequencing around a little bit.
That's correct. Changing the sequence around will certainly work. We usually have flexibility with that.
Right. So what makes a good trade partner when it comes to whether it's the tile guy, the electrician, what do you view, when they come to the job site, how do you know, and what's your kind of methodology to see if that's the right person on the job, regardless if you ever worked with a company before, but the individuals count. And sometimes you don't get the same people that come to a job, and you got to kind of understand if they get it or not.
You can see in their face whether they get it or not. You can see it right away. Either some people are just there because it's a paycheck, and you want to weed them out as soon as possible, and other people want to do good work, and you just need to encourage them and reinforce that good work is respected and honored here.
So how do you keep them accountable? So, say they do decent work, but maybe they show up one day with 2 guys, and then you need more. And what's your process for when things aren't
of their
right?
Manpower, and you hit them with it, but you hit the boss with it. Not technically the boss is really not usually on their boss is really not usually on the job. So that's really the boss's kind of situation. And then there's some times where like let's take a plumber for example. That the plumber's got 6 guys, but he's got one guy that's really intelligent, a troubleshooter, and he knows how to he knows how to install your fixtures and your finer things.
Okay. I remember when I started, this is back, about 1982, 83, and we were working on a foundation, and I had a real problem with the guy working the equipment, the heavy equipment. I think it was a bulldozer, and I didn't know much. I was fresh out of college, and
right.
I started yelling at the guy, "You can't do that!" And then I got this phone call, and a scathing phone call from his boss. He says, "It's one thing to tell me that you have a problem with my person.
Correct.
And if I'm not doing it right, then you can yell at me all you want, but
right.
You can never, ever yell at my people."
Got it.
So there is definitely a hierarchy.
So you go to the person responsible. Hey, this is your contract, and hey, this guy is not performing to what I believe is this level of standards. And and it could be anything from the fact that he doesn't work in a clean manner. I can't tell you how important cleanliness is to me, and cleanliness is to a job site.
I think it's super important. I mean, it's kind of one of the trademarks, a landmark. Every site you see is clean.
And
it has to be.
And so, if you live in a clean house, people will, try to keep it clean. So as a superintendent, what you need to do is, not just yell at people when they're off, is you need to find ways, because everybody has a little bit different personality. You need to find ways to get them to want to perform.
To be a part of the team, because It is a team effort at the end of the day.
It's absolutely a team effort, and it's impossible to do it any other way. So there are some little tricks that I use. I learn people's names. As soon as I can, as 3 or 4 of each one of the subcontractors' lead men names, so that I can call them by name. And
it's better than saying, "Hey, you. Come over here."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Don't you even know me? I've been here for 3 weeks."
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You're personally connecting with them.
Respect them. Hey, I know your name. And so now you know that I know your name. Just realize that when I have a problem with you, I'm going to say your name. So, but you understand what I'm saying.
Of course.
Yeah. You have to start by leading from the front. You can't just sit back and point your finger and say, that's
but it's, a lot of large extent, I guess you're a coach. I mean, this is your team, whether they work directly for you or not, they're part of the overall team. So it comes to like, "Hey, coach, what do I do now if I get an issue?" So they come to you.
Correct. And they come to me they go to the superintendent in our homes that are complicated and always have, The architectural plans are a representation of what we want it to look like and come out. And the engineering plans are ways that the engineers believe you can accomplish that. Sometimes that's not the case. So the people on the job, they want answers. So our job also as a superintendent is to go get them answers in a timely fashion that are real answers that they can rely on.
So all these lines of communication have to be opened up
And
between
that is what
everybody.
I try to tell the people that work on my particular team. Thanks to you, I have a team on this.
You've got a great team.
And the thing is that you think you're in the construction business, but you're not. You're in the communication business. These people need answers. You know, they look to us for help. So if we give them answers that are good, solid answers that help them be more efficient in their endeavors, then they're going to listen to us when we have a request.
Sure, of course. And that, you know, that it's important, again, the communication side. But there's more to communication than just to the subcontractors and the engineers and the architects. Then you have the homeowner,
Yes.
who is a key central spoke in this whole kind of puzzle of,
Correct.
of I like it, but. So how do you deal with the but?
Learning to have a bedside manners. You must. You first have to jump into their skin and say, okay, you know, clients typically said to me, you know, after when I ran my own shop, having taken them to the architect and sat in on many sessions while the home was being designed. And then, you know, while I'm building the home, listen to the client say, I never thought it was look like this.
Yeah, we see that a lot.
And as a person who's understood and lived with plans his whole life, you go, well, what the heck did you think it was going to look like? But the bottom line is you have to put yourself in their position.
Of course, they're looking at a 2D set of drawings, or maybe even at the rendering, but it's not the same as walking the job.
The good thing about construction is what you need to do is you need to educate them. And you need to do it in such a way that you're not being condescending, that you're being, you know, straightforward and nice, and that they understand that you have their best interests in mind.
And that pays dividends, especially if you set the standard from the beginning and they understand
Correct.
how the communication flow works
Correct.
and what your goal is.
And it started, you know, before there was design teams or interior design teams. So, you know, basically what we want clients to do is to make choices. We want them to make choices in a timely manner so we can move the project forward and we don't have to hear from them, oh, it's taking so long, you know. Well, oh, I answered you on that. Yes, you answered me on that 3 months after I asked you that. So
right.
that doesn't...
The timing is really important. And sometimes these changes add up.
So all of that comes down to communicating to them, you know, what it is that you're doing, what you're really doing, because it's not obvious to them, and making sure that they understand some of the construction process and using logic as much as you possibly can, get it across logically. So I like to say, you know, sometimes when I don't understand something, I say, speak to me like I'm in first grade. Tell me, you know,
right. The basics.
Tell me how to do it. And I know that this is construction and construction's logical. So if it's not a logical answer, then you're not telling me the right stuff. So I need to sort of get that across and hold the hand of the owner. And then if you're successful with that, the owner then will start to realize that you have their best interest in mind, and they will be more open to what you have to say. I've always told the owners, like, look, I have two opinions. I have my professional opinion, which you really should listen to. Okay, it has real true value. It means it's experience and, you know, what I've done and what's been successful. And then I have a personal opinion, like what color the room should be.
Right.
Which
not as important.
Doesn't matter at all. So please, you know, so if you like, you know, if whatever you like is what I'm going to like, as long as you like it once you get it.
So you spent 2 stints with Landmark. First one was back in, I think, probably 2015, maybe.
2012 to 2017.
Yeah, so it was about 5 years. So, and then you left, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But when you came back, you know, and since you've been back, what have you seen kind of as the evolution of Landmark? What have you seen kind of the changes over the year of the processes and the way things are handled?
Landmark has been able to adapt to all of the changes that are in the needs of homeowners. You have bought into all of the style and the custom treatment. You have embraced it. Instead of, you know, builders saying, oh, you really want to do that detail? That's not what I wanted. You say, okay, that's really sharp looking. Let's try to figure out how to do that best way we can. And so you've embraced the new concepts and the new features of homes.
And these homes are much more complicated. And
Much,
not that they
much-
were that simple in
No,
2012,
th-
2013,
th-
2014,
They've
2015.
taken a
It was-
quantum leap since 2017.
Yes, they have.
You know,
They have.
so you embrace it around at Landmark.
I think we've kind of developed some processes too. I mean, having it used to be, and correct me for if I'm wrong with your company when you did it, but when you would have one person was the project manager / superintendent / everything.
Correct.
And now we kind of changed to specific divisions within our company
Correct.
that can feed you the information that you need to be successful.
Yeah.
And they have to, in turn, get that information from the owner and our design
Correct.
team and whatever else. So this whole collaboration today versus trying to do it all by
part
yourself.
Part of the reason, that I wanted to come back to Landmark is that culture was here when I left, and it's gotten much better.
Well, when you were here before versus when you came back, yes, our culture is similar.
Yeah, but Landmark has depth. That's what you're talking about right now. So we have people that put the stuff in the pipe and feed the guy down the line. So there's always someone to fall back on and rely on when I need help or support.
Yeah, and I think the systems are better. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we had someone like myself or Brandon or whoever that could help feed some of the information, but I think it's a much more disciplined and more defined process today. So, and again, we have different layers. So if something doesn't work with Pratik, who's your project manager on site, he can kick it up to Brandon, who's the overall project manager, and then he can kind of really help kind of nail down the issues.
And the hierarchy also helps with the subcontractors a little bit, because if I get to a spot where I'm now the subcontractor and I are maybe stepped on each other's toes a couple of times, if I escalate it up to someone who wrote the contract that they're under, then things can get resolved that way too. So
yeah, and I think that's really important to have that layering, because it sometimes brings the temperature down.
Yeah, it does. It takes, say, hey man, what's going on here?
Right. So how do we fix this?
Yeah. I need everybody. They need to say the
Yeah,
same
I think
thing.
I'm not going to name specific subs, but when you first started on the job, you had some specific subs that came in hot and heavy and had to really understand your style. And now it's you guys are I want to say maybe buddies, maybe not, but at least on the same page, and things really work. They really, you really get each other, which might not have happened when they first got there.
Mutual respect has to be developed.
So when you went off on your sabbatical, let's call it that.
Okay.
Okay. So, you wanted to explore different things, and you went out west, Colorado, Utah, and then you ended up in California.
Correct.
So you built a house out there on a hillside.
It's carved out of a hillside.
Carved out. Tell us a little bit about that experience and how that helped you kind of learn.
They call it a basement job. I had a client way back who that I kept always in touch with, who I knew we had a surfing background together. So, and I knew that he always went to California every summer, and he had property out there. He was a very successful guy. So when I was out in Colorado, he called me up and he goes, hey, do you want to come on out here to California and look at something? I want to know if you can build a house for me out in California.
Did he tell you it was on the side of a hill?
No, he didn't tell me anything about it. He says, I've got, plans already done, and everything's in the box. And I got it all figured out. All I need you to do is. So of course,
it's very simple.
With my large ego, I said, yeah, I could build a house in California. So
what's different about their practices than it is here?
You know what? There's plenty. Okay, there's plenty, especially in this is called a basement job. And we've all seen houses that, maybe back 20, 30 years ago, where you've seen a photo of it, and there's a house that's built on stilts, and there's only one portion of the house connected to the ground. And there's a bunch of empty space down below.
Yep.
Well, a lot of people started figuring out that that's a lot of wasted space.
Sure, we can enclose it.
So so the concept is you take the side of the mountain and you send shoring down. You drive shoring down into it to, in this particular case, a depth of 50 feet, so that you can carve out a 30-foot section of the...
So you're actually carving part of the mountain away,
Correct.
chipping it away.
With a homeowner on each side, 10 feet away.
Not challenging at all.
Not challenging at all.
How long did that house take to build? I'm just curious.
It took 36 months
to
build.
So it's a pretty complicated home.
And it wasn't a huge home, but it was very complicated.
Wow.
But the thing is, by doing these, what's called the basement job, you see, we have like coverage criteria for our zoning, and they have coverage criteria for zoning. The thing is, there's a loophole with their coverage criteria for zoning if you do a basement house. So we went into a neighborhood where every other house was not more than 3,000, even exclusive, but 3,000 square foot. And we built a 6,000 square foot home
By going down.
with 3 stories in the glass. So that's
that home had an elevator, from what I remember.
Yeah, it had a glass elevator. Actually, I had 5 stops. It was 3 stories, but split level. So, so when I got out there and I looked around at what I had to do, I was going like, I don't really have a clue how this is going. Now they have other places out in the desert that build just like we do. Okay. But there's certain special conditions that you need to be mindful of when you're close to the San Andreas Fault, and things like seismic conditions and things like that. So, the first thing you learn is that, just a small anecdote with when I went out there, I started interviewing contractors, and I started with some really good leads for a foundation contractor. Where was I going to start? Which is like critical. If I don't come out,
especially if you're boring down into the ground.
Yeah, I'm not going to. So I fell back on a rule that I had was really good people know really good people. Okay, and after meeting 5 foundation contractors, realizing that the one that had the greatest reputation was actually the best, I became familiar with them, and I said, "Hey, look, and they said, yeah, we know you're a Florida boy." They said, by the way, Florida boy, there's about 15% of the builders out here can build these houses, and about 1/3 of them are successful at it. Okay.
But that's a tribute to you and your ability to adapt over time and your experience.
There was a challenge. They threw the gauntlet down for me, and I said, okay, don't worry about it. Just go. But so they took a liking to me, and they said, because of the understanding I had for just construction processes, and they said, and I said, so who do you got that's a good concrete contractor, and who do you know that's a good? And so one thing led to the other. Good contractors taught me how to build in this environment. And what you have to remember is that when in Rome, you really do as the Romans do. You don't take your Florida technology there. There, they hardly ever have rain, but water is a bigger problem for them than it is for us.
Because when it rains, it pours.
Because when it rains, it pours. And when it pours, the sandstone that's hard as
mudslides,
rock is not hard at all.
We just saw that a few weeks ago in California.
And it's not hard at all anymore. So we were in that kind of an environment. And, it's really, it's dangerous when you're building because you have all this exposed earth. And, now if it rains on it, there's nothing that protects it. So you learn that, hey, the tile guy does all of his waterproofing the way a roofer does a built-up roof. Okay, he starts with liquid and membrane, and just to get, because we carved out of the side of the mountain, and we did everything substrate on the foundation in concrete, then built a 3-story essentially house out of wood.
Right, which has to be protected.
Which had to be protected, but the wood is better seismically than anything else.
Because it'll give, right?
Because it will give. So. And to them, it's a renewable resource, and so they like it. So you have to learn that you're not just going to go there and impose what you know. You're going to learn new stuff.
So the flexibility is important for any superintendent to be able to no one knows it all.
Right.
And you've been in the business a long time. I've been in the business a long time. And you're always learning.
The more that you're around, you don't know it all.
The more I know, the more I know I don't know.
Correct. And so the thing was, I found good people that educated me. It ends up the building department ended up being the same way. At first, they challenged me, and then after a while, they looked at me and they said, "Hey, you're all right."
Right. They respect you.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're all right. So let me give you a hint.
That helps.
And of course it does.
So you finish building the house in California. You come back to South Florida. Welcome back. And we hunt you down.
Yeah.
Hey, Sam, by the way, we got a really unique project you might be interested in.
Correct.
It's 54,000 square feet. You think you want to take it on?
California all over again. Actually, you hit me at a really good time. I thought retirement was a good idea for me. And I had found a nice cottage up on the water, up in a rural area. But I realized after a while that um, my cognitive skills and my critical thinking wasn't being challenged at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard just to stop, go from
So
50 miles an hour to zero.
so I felt myself saying, hey, not having good cognitive skills and ability to think and solve problems is like getting older, and I don't want to.
I don't blame you.
And no, I just don't want to. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to resist. I'm going to fight.
So you didn't just jump into some little house to keep busy.
Well, then there was the ego portion of it.
Can you handle it?
As a matter of fact, I wasn't sure I could. All right.
Again, that's the biggest house Landmark's ever built,
Yeah,
and it's a challenge.
I wasn't sure that I could, but I was encouraged that, really, hey, you know what you're doing. You got enough. And you were part of that encouragement, a big part of that encouragement, because you had faith in me. You were asking me in the first place.
So what makes a project like that, the scale of that project, different? How do you manage a project that large compared to your 6,000 square foot home or a 10,000 square foot home?
The thing is that whenever I've been faced with something that's overwhelming, I immediately go to compartmentalizing. Okay. Hey, I don't have to build the whole house tomorrow. I just have to build the second floor. Okay. And so let me figure out what I need to do to, help that happen. And actually, as a superintendent of the job, you feel like you're the builder because you're the guy. And so what I did was I compartmentalized each particular scope of work and never thought about how big the house was, because that's just wasn't in the best interest of the project.
Right. How do you eat a whole cow? One bite at a time, right?
Yeah, exactly. One bite at a time. And then I had to read the house. I remember you quizzing me about, hey, when are we going to start framing and when are we going to do this? I came on board. The house was, the shell was 50% complete. So the first floor level north and south was sort of done, but the core area, what I call the core area, the living room, the volume of space, which was going to 30 feet, wasn't going to be done for some time. And it was, okay, so look at the house and go, what will you let me do? What can I do to be effective and not wait till
keep the schedule moving,
roofed in.
Right.
And so then we discussed it, and the plan was, okay, hey, I can frame over on this side, and then I can frame on this side.
Right, you break into phases.
Frame up there.
Right.
So that was another
left
portion.
side, right side, center side. We've done that several times.
So that was another compartmentalizing type of a thing. And so the house has actually followed its progression. It's followed its first floor south, second floor south, second floor north, and it goes around that way. And it's coming together really nicely now.
So right now you got a pretty good team out there. You've got an assistant superintendent,
yes,
assistant project manager. So how do you kind of start? Walk us through your day. How do you start? How do you get your guys organized? What's your process?
Well, we're specialized. Okay. My job is the big picture and moving the project forward in critical path and overall quality control and coordinating with subs. So, we specialize, but we overlap. Okay. I have Pratik, who's let's say he's my operations office manager. Okay. He handles, dealing with verifying proposals and cleaning them up. Then he takes them to me and we look at them together and we sort out to make sure that what we want you guys to contract for, that you haven't already contracted for, is being contracted for. And the coverage is there.
So the scope has to be looked at thoroughly.
The scope has to be looked at, and it has to be looked at thoroughly because we have interesting designs and they're fluid. They change. The owners tend to come up with new ideas and they want to incorporate them now. And so we're constantly challenged with that. Then I have Stefan, who is actually situate where his office is in the house. And he's the day-to-day holding the pulse of the house, and he knows what room is ready to do what in.
Yeah, I've seen his reports. He has a report on every room in that house and where it is.
It was something that I designed originally with him, and then he refined it. He took it. It's color-coded. It's like green go, yellow caution, you're on deck, and red is no, you're stuck. And so in this manner, we can tell people what they're going to do for their particular scope and where they need to go next. And we can identify that. So that's another aspect of the compartmentalizing.
Yeah, and I think it's really good for them to learn from you. It's a little bit of a tutelage. Someone that's maybe 30 years old or 28 or 35 or whatever doesn't have nearly the knowledge base that you have, and to be able to learn from someone like you with the techniques you use is super valuable for them in their growth journey.
Well, thank you for the compliment.
Oh, it's true. I'm not trying to fluff your feathers. I mean, that's just pretty much, the way it is.
Right.
And I know like Pratik came up with a really good, these guys try to get creative, a way to, hey, I can actually put a QR code on each one of the rooms where you can now
Correct.
pull up your plans and
Correct.
look at what's going on, and you
Correct.
can see the specifications, and there's a
Correct.
special folder you put aside. He
Correct.
did a really good job with that. But that kind of innovation and the way you challenge them to come up with new ideas.
And that's what I did. I said, hey, I heard some guys are doing this. Why aren't we doing that? It sounds like a good plan. And then they jump on it. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we work well together, and I believe we're quite an effective team.
So what are some of the biggest challenges you're facing on that project?
The biggest challenges is that, it's just the nature of the business today. We're building very sophisticated homes in the contemporary style, and that doesn't afford you much space for the nuts and bolts of what makes things work, like your HVAC system, your roof drainage system. And so in order to expedite a home, you have an architectural set of plans, and it goes to a structural engineer, an electrical engineer, a HVAC engineer at the same time, and they all work and send these plans back in without necessarily knowing what the other guy did.
There's a coordination that it really ends up being your job to make sure the
Correct.
conflicts aren't there or resolve them.
Does it really work? And I think that if you wanted to take another year and a half out, you would find out if it really works, or go ahead and do it. So the answer is that most of my time originally was knock on the door and say, hey, Sam, this doesn't work. So we have to come up with a workaround, because we have to produce that room at that level. And
the architects don't always give a lot of space. I remember the rainwater leader system, basically, which is the drainage system within the roof structure.
Sets of drains.
All kinds of drains, but then you have other things that go in the same space, and
Correct.
you have to find ways to make it all work
Correct.
and coordinate,
Correct.
The different trades. So
and
water only flows downhill.
Correct. And who's cutting who off? No, you're cutting, you can't shut I understand that's easier for your plumbing, but you can't shut the AC guy out, because we need to put air conditioning in that room. The owner would want that. So,
and there were some creative solutions, a rooftop air conditioner where it wasn't in the original design.
Correct.
That was the only way you were going to get AC to work within those constraints.
Correct. Because of the steel beam drawn that nobody envisioned
that took months to fetter out.
Yes. So that's basically where it started. Now it's more quality control and continuing to focus on the critical path. How are we going to close this house out? And again, it's challenging, doubly challenging, because we have an owner designer who's got new ideas,
which is great. We welcome them, but they can again be challenging when
Correct.
There's several, they hit you at one time, and you
Right.
have to resequence, and it really puts you back a couple of steps.
We want to make them happy,
of course.
But we want to make them very happy in their home.
Let's give them the understanding of the impact of the decisions they're making.
Correct. And so then that's part of the challenge: how to fold that in, but still keep your eye on the critical path and still move forward. So that's my big picture look. But
so what's your biggest accomplishment you're most proud of so far on that job?
I would have to say is working out all of that engineering. That's probably and I like the nuts and bolts of that. So, working that engineering out was the most challenging portion. That's what kept me up at nights. It seriously kept me.
Yeah, I mean, your mind's just trying to figure out how this is all going to sequence and work.
I would go to sleep saying there's really no way to do that, and then wake up at 2:00 in the morning and go, aha.
A lot of aha moments.
Yeah, aha. And that's really, sleep on it is for real. So it would help me out a lot. Now I'm doing stuff that I already know, and now it's just making sure that the quality's there. You follow?
Of course.
I riddled the big riddles. So
Right.
now it's just, okay, making sure the quality.
Left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, right through the finish.
Quality comes through.
Right. So that's super interesting, and of course your expertise is super valuable. So if you were meeting a homeowner that's building a custom home for the first time, what advice would you give them to look for when they're in their home and there's a supervisor there? What should they expect?
Well, I mean, the first thing they should do is, they should pick a builder that has the knowledge and the capacity to do the job in the first place. Don't underestimate the value of your professional team. We want the owner to make choices, not changes. So we want the owner to stay focused on developing a plan and follow the plan. Follow the plan as closely as you can. So whatever design professionals you come up with, you need to just go with them. One of the biggest errors I think that clients make is they tend to over focus on what you're doing today. And they're always, at this level, they're always concerned that they're not doing enough. And they're not doing enough. And I should add this detail and add that detail and add this detail. So it's another thing that I would advise them to do is keep your eye on the big picture.
Don't get too bogged down in the details. Let us handle that.
Yeah, a masterpiece painting doesn't have detail all over. That's a photograph. Right. And photographs are hard. A home with somewhat too much detail is hard to look at.
And a good superintendent knows what to sequence in, knows questions to ask you if you're the owner. Correct. And can help you through that process.
And the design professionals are first. They have the first craft.
Of course.
And
but you're the one putting it together. So when there's a gap, you have to figure that out.
Reminding you. And as a matter of fact, I have a board for the owner because we have the owners meetings once a week because she is the design team as well. And the latest one I put up on, let's revisit the sitting space that you want to put in your working kitchen, because in reality, I think that she hasn't made the best choice.
So you can say, hey, but it's not too late to adjust.
We haven't done it yet.
Right. Let's look at it now.
Now here's the guys with the boots on the ground that actually have a contract to do with that. And that little add-on that you wanted to put on the end to put a couple of stools on, we have a better idea. And we've mentioned it to you before, but now we were going to mention it to you one more time just before.
And here's why.
Right. Because our professional opinion is that this would be a better move.
Right. And I'm sure she appreciates that because it's hard to unwind some of that.
You have to earn that appreciation. Right. You have to earn it. She can't just think that you're trying to make your workload easier.
No, at the end of the day, like we said,
you're not making your workload easier.
No, and we want them to be super happy with the home. Yeah. We don't want to have them have regrets. And if we see something, we say something.
Yeah.
So that's super important.
See something, say something. That's perfect. Yes. So that's what I'm doing. It's on. Hey, let's revisit it, and that's the nicest way I can say it. It's not in concrete yet.
Exactly. So what motivates you after all these years in the business? What kind of gets you up in the day and invigorates you?
Getting out of bed is a thing, So yeah, what motivates me is that it's the challenges, is that I know that if I don't get out of bed and go do this in 2 hours in this home, I'd be bored.
Yeah.
And my cognitive skills would go to waste. And I believe I still have...
There's gas in the tank.
I still have gas in the tank, and I believe I can still contribute. And I believe that at the bottom line is I'm a really good builder.
You are. And again, to have someone of your talent and skill level, it would be a waste to be sitting by a river and watching the tides come and go.
It's more a waste of me than it is a waste of the talent. I'm wasting my life. This is good. This is good for me. I get to interact with people on all different, on let's say specifically this level, but I get to interact with all different kinds of people and different, ethnic backgrounds. And so, so there's a social aspect of it too. So I'm talking and I'm, we're figuring things out.
And you're seeing things happen. It's not just for, just to have talking for talking's sake. You see the results of this over time.
As a matter of fact, right before I came here, I did a walkthrough in the house, and the owner happens to be away for a week. And, the constant question is, what's new? So I just sent her photos. look at this. Oh, your pergola's going up in the backyard.
They get excited about that. Sure.
Very much so. Your stone is, remember the morning bar that you changed, by the way? Well, the stone is now going where you wanted it. And so all of these things, and I got a lot of, those text thumbs ups, like, hey.
So is that kind of like, what's the greatest, I was going to ask, what's the greatest compliment you can get from a homeowner? I think you're kind of answering that. I mean, the
actually,
feedback.
She has said to me, Sam, I know you're taking care of me.
And that feels good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I work for a pat on the back as much as anything else. She has said, yes, Sam, I know you're looking out for me.
Well, Sam, this has been fantastic.
And she also, by the way, so that I'm clear about it, says on the whole Landmark team.
Well, that's good. That's a real compliment to because we do work in a team environment.
Just me, it's you that I know cares for me and the rest of the team doesn't. She says, no, it's been that way all the way down the line.
Wow. The
whole Landmark team. So there's no way that I'm going to let us lose that. We're going to have that tag at the end of this job.
Absolutely. And I'm sure she's going to be super happy. And we're going to be very proud to have that home in our portfolio.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And hope to do many more, maybe that size or larger.
Maybe.
You never know. So thanks again for coming. It's been a really good interview. Giving people a real behind the scene look at what it takes to run a high-end custom home, with a job site like this, working at the highest level. And, again, thanks for being here. I appreciate your time, taking it out of your busy day and to share your views and your knowledge with our listening audience.
It's actually, it's a compliment being asked. So I appreciate that. And you made it fun. So thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode of The Insider's Guide to Custom Homes, please subscribe, like, and share with someone who's looking to build a custom home. Thanks again for listening. And remember, build your home the Landmark way. Relax and enjoy the journey.